My name is Casey, and I'm 28 years old. Last year, I sat at my husband's family dinner where they'd printed my place card to say, House Staff, instead of my name, and removed my chair entirely. For 2 years, the Whitmores made sure I knew I'd never be good enough for their precious son. But that night, they went too far. When I raised my empty glass for a toast that left the entire room in stunned silence, I had no idea the words I was about to speak would expose their charity fraud, destroy their reputation, and change the lives of every service worker they'd ever humiliated. What happened next proved that sometimes the people you dismiss as the help are the very ones who've been holding you up all along. But before we move back to it, comment down your age and where you are watching from, and if this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about deception, betrayal, and finding the strength to reclaim your life. The gilded envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, its corners sharp enough to draw blood if I wasn't careful. I turned it over in my hands, studying the Whitmore family crest embossed in gold, a lion's head surrounded by thorny roses. Even their stationery had teeth. Casey Whitmore. I read aloud, though the name still felt foreign on my tongue after 2 years of marriage. Inside, the invitation announced a dinner to celebrate Daniel's sister Victoria's engagement to Preston Blackwell III. The formality of it made my stomach turn. Every interaction with Daniel's family felt like a performance I hadn't rehearsed for. Daniel found me sitting at our kitchen table, the invitation spread before me like evidence of a crime I hadn't committed yet. He swept in from work, designer suit impeccable despite the late hour, and kissed my forehead with the same efficiency he signed contracts. "You got the invitation," he said, loosening his tie. "Good. Mother would have been insufferable if it got lost in the mail." "Do I have to go?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Daniel's jaw tightened, that microscopic till I'd learned to read like a weather forecast. "Storm approaching. Of course you have to go. You're my wife. Your family doesn't see it that way." He poured himself a scotch, the crystal decanter catching the light. "They're just traditional. Old money has old ways. You knew that when you married me." "I knew you," I countered. "I married you, not them." Daniel sat across from me, his fingers drumming against the table. Another tell, this one meaning he was crafting his argument. "Look, it'll mean a lot if you show your face. Victoria's engagement is a big deal for the family. Just don't take anything personally." The phrase hung between us like a warning label. Don't take it personally when his mother looked through me like I was wallpaper. Don't take it personally when his father asked for the 100th time where I'd gone to school, not because he'd forgotten, but because he enjoyed watching me say State University instead of Harvard or Yale. "I'll go," I said finally, folding the invitation along its original creases. "For you." Daniel's smile was quick, relieved. He was already mentally moving on to the next item on his agenda. "Wear the black dress. The one from Nordstrom, not the one from Target." I nodded, though he'd already turned away, scrolling through his phone. He didn't see me flinch. The night of the dinner, I stood before our bedroom mirror, adjusting the black dress, the Nordstrom one, as instructed. It was elegant in its simplicity, knee-length, modest neckline, cap sleeves. The kind of dress that whispered rather than shouted. I'd learned early in our marriage that Daniel's family viewed any display of personality as vulgar. My reflection stared back, and I found myself whispering to her like a coach before a game. "You belong here. You're his wife. You have every right to be at that table." But even as I said it, my reflection seemed unconvinced. Her eyes, my eyes, held a wariness that makeup couldn't conceal. I touched the simple pearl necklace at my throat, a wedding gift from Daniel's grandmother, the only member of his family who'd shown me genuine warmth before she passed last spring. "You ready?" Daniel called from the living room. I grabbed my purse, a small clutch I'd bought myself, nothing designer, and took one last look in the mirror. Ready as I'll ever be. The drive to the Whitmore estate took us out of the city and into the Connecticut countryside, where properties were measured in acres rather than square feet. The autumn trees formed a canopy of gold and crimson above us, beautiful and somehow oppressive. Daniel drove his BMW with one hand on the wheel, the other holding mine, but his grip was loose, distracted. "Remember," he said as we turned onto the private drive, "just stick close to me. Smile. Don't engage if someone baits you." "Baits me?" I pulled my hand away. "What am I, a fish?" "You know what I mean." The driveway curved through manicured grounds, past a fountain that had been shipped piece by piece from Italy, according to family lore. The house, though house seemed too small a word, rose before us in limestone and glass, every window blazing with warm light. Cars already filled the circular drive, Mercedes, Teslas, a vintage Rolls-Royce that belonged to Daniel's uncle. As we parked, I saw the catering vans tucked discreetly to the side, staff members in black and white uniforms carrying covered trays through a service entrance. Something twisted in my stomach as I realized my dress, my carefully chosen, appropriate black dress, made me look more like them than the guests stepping out of their luxury cars. "Showtime," Daniel muttered, straightening his tie. The front door opened before we could knock. Mrs. Whitmore, Catherine, though she'd never invited me to use her first name, stood framed in the doorway like a portrait of austere elegance. Her silver hair was pulled into a chignon that had probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her dress, a deep burgundy that complemented the foyer's mahogany paneling, made my black outfit look even more like staff attire. "Daniel, darling," she said, air-kissing both his cheeks. "You're late." "Traffic," he lied smoothly. We'd been sitting in the driveway for 5 minutes while he answered work emails. Catherine's gaze shifted to me, her smile cooling by several degrees.
"Casey."
"How nice of you to come." I extended my hand, a gesture she met with fingertips barely grazing mine before withdrawing, as if she'd touched something questionable at a garage sale. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Whitmore." She'd already turned away, leading us into the foyer. Everyone's in the drawing room. The house overwhelmed me every time, not just its size, but its aggressive perfection. Every surface gleamed. Every painting hung at precisely the right height. Every flower in every arrangement stood at attention like soldiers. It was a house that demanded you notice how much everything cost. The drawing room buzzed with conversation and the clink of champagne glasses. I recognized the usual cast: Daniel's father, Robert, holding court near the fireplace, his uncle George telling the same story about meeting a Kennedy, cousins whose names I could never keep straight, and Victoria, tonight's princess, draped across a settee while her fiancé Preston fetched her drinks. "Daniel," Victoria called out, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Finally. Come here, I want you to meet Preston's parents." Daniel moved toward his sister, and I followed, but Victoria's gaze stopped me mid-step. She looked me up and down with theatrical slowness, then laughed, that tinkling, practiced laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Oh my God," she said loud enough for the room to hear. "Casey, did you coordinate with the help? You're all matchy-matchy." The room rippled with laughter. I felt heat rise to my cheeks as I noticed the servers weaving through the crowd, all in black, all suddenly looking like my reflection. "It's called a little black dress," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I thought it was a classic." "Classic," Victoria repeated, exchanging glances with her friends. "That's one word for it." Daniel forced a chuckle, that uncomfortable sound he made when he didn't know which side to take. He didn't defend me. He didn't say anything at all. A young server approached with a tray of champagne. As I reached for a glass, he pulled something from his pocket, a small plastic badge on a lanyard. "Excuse me, miss," he said quietly. "You forgot this." I looked down at the badge. In bold letters, it read, "House Staff." "I'm not," I began, but the server had already moved on, clearly mortified by his mistake. Victoria's laughter rang out again. "Oh, that's precious. Even the actual help thinks you're one of them." The laughter that followed lasted too long, spread too far. I stood there holding the badge, my fingers trembling slightly. Daniel finally took it from me, shoving it in his pocket. "Simple mistake," he said to the room at large. "Let's go find our seats for dinner." But as we moved toward the dining room, I caught Daniel's mother watching me with a small, satisfied smile. And I understood with sudden clarity that it hadn't been a mistake at all. The dining room could have been lifted from a period film: long mahogany table, crystal chandelier casting prismatic light, oil paintings of stern Whitmore ancestors watching from gilded frames. Place cards in gold calligraphy marked each seat, arranged with the precision of a military operation. I followed Daniel, scanning for our names among the elegant script. His was there, of course, positioned at his mother's right hand. I circled the table, checking each card once, then twice. The other guests found their places easily, pulling out chairs, settling in with the comfortable familiarity of people who'd done this dance many times before. "Casey," Victoria called out sweetly. "Having trouble finding your seat?" I reached the end of the table, where one card remained. My throat tightened as I read it. House staff. The same bold, impersonal lettering as the badge. No gold calligraphy, no elegant script. And worse, no chair. The room fell silent, everyone watching to see what I'd do. Daniel stood frozen at his place, his face flushing red, though whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. "There seems to be a mistake," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Is there?" Catherine asked, her tone suggesting this was the most amusing thing she'd heard all week. The seating was arranged weeks ago, every detail personally overseen. Victoria giggled, pressing her hand to Preston's arm. "You can serve if you can't sit. We could use an extra pair of hands." The cousins laughed. The uncles chuckled. The aunts tittered behind their hands. And Daniel, my husband, the man who'd promised to love and protect me, forced out another of those uncomfortable laughs. "Come on," he said weakly. "That's not funny." "Oh, lighten up, Danny," his father boomed from the head of the table. "It's just a bit of fun. Your wife needs to learn to take a joke." I remained standing at the end of the table, the place card in my hand. A server, a real one, approached with a chair from against the wall, but Catherine waved him away with a sharp gesture. "We don't alter the seating arrangement," she said firmly. "It would throw off the entire balance." "The balance," I repeated slowly. "Know your place," she said, her smile sharp as the sterling silver knives beside each plate. "That's all anyone needs to do to keep things running smoothly." The server retreated with the chair. I stood there, clutching my purse, while everyone else settled into their seats. The actual staff began bringing out the first course, a delicate butternut squash soup that filled the room with a scent of sage and brown butter. Daniel patted the arm of his chair. You could just stand here beside me, like a dog at its master's feet." The thought came unbidden, but once it arrived, I couldn't shake it. "That's thoughtful," I said, and his face brightened until I continued, "but I think I'll maintain my standing position here." Better view of the room. Bowls were placed before each guest with practiced precision. The servers moved past me as if I were furniture, their eyes carefully averted. I recognized the look. I'd worn it myself during my college years waiting tables, that practiced invisibility that let you move through rich people's lives without becoming part of them. The family began eating, conversation resuming as if nothing unusual were happening. Stories about ski trips to Aspen, complaints about the difficulty of finding good help, updates on stock portfolios. Victoria held court, describing her wedding plans in exhaustive detail: the dress from Vera Wang, the flowers flown in from Holland, the reception at the yacht club. "Of course," she said, glancing at me. "We'll have to be very careful about the guest list. Keep it to a certain caliber of people." "Absolutely," her mother agreed. "You can't be too careful. Let the wrong sort in, and before you know it, standard slip." The second course arrived, seared scallops with cauliflower puree. My stomach growled audibly. The cousin sitting nearest to me, Marcus, I think, made a show of savoring his scallops.
He said loudly.
"These are incredible. Shame you're fasting tonight, Casey." "Yes," Victoria added. "Though I suppose watching your figure is important when you're trying to elevate yourself." Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but said nothing. He was cutting his scallops into precise pieces, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. "Daniel," his mother said, her voice carrying that false concern she'd perfected. Your wife looks tired. Perhaps she'd be more comfortable in the kitchen? I'm sure the staff could use an extra hand with the dishes. That's not, Daniel began. Actually, Victoria interrupted. Didn't Casey work in food service? I'm sure she remembers how it's done. I worked my way through college, I said clearly. Waiting tables at night, studying during breaks.
Graduated summa cum laude.
Robert snorted from the head of the table. State school, though. It's not quite the same as a real education. I suppose everyone can't inherit their achievements, I said. The room went cold. Forks paused midway to mouths. Catherine's eyes narrowed to slits. What did you say? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Nothing, Daniel said quickly. She didn't mean anything by it. She knows she's lucky, he added, and those 4 words, changed everything.
Lucky.
Lucky to have married him. Lucky to be allowed in this room, even without a chair. Lucky to be insulted by people who'd never worked a day in their lives, who'd inherited everything and earned nothing. The main course arrived, duck à l'orange, the sauce gleaming like liquid amber. The aroma was intoxicating. My stomach cramped with hunger, and I pressed my hand against it, trying to quiet the rumbling. Darling, Catherine said to Daniel, loud enough for everyone to hear, you really should have fed her before you brought her. We can't have hungry strays at a family dinner. Victoria laughed so hard, she nearly choked on her wine. Strays? Mother, you're terrible. But accurate, Marcus added. I mean, where did you even find her, Daniel? Was there a sale at the mall? They were all laughing now, even Preston, who I'd thought might be different. The only one not laughing was a younger cousin, Emma, who sat at the far end of the table, her face troubled. When our eyes met, she mouthed, I'm sorry. Daniel finally spoke up, but not in my defense. Okay, that's enough. Let's talk about something else. But this is so much fun, Victoria protested. Besides, if she can't handle a little teasing, how's she going to handle being a Whitmore? She's not a Whitmore, Catherine said flatly. She's married to one. There's a difference. Blood matters. A server approached me hesitantly, clearly unsure of protocol. He held a bottle of wine, gesturing toward the empty glasses on the table. Would you mind? Catherine asked me directly. Since you're already standing? It would be so helpful if you could pour. The server looked mortified, but Catherine's stare was unwavering. The room waited to see if I'd comply, if I'd finally accept the role they'd assigned me. I took the bottle from the server's grateful hands. It was a good weight, substantial. A 1998 Chateau Margaux, according to the label. I moved around the table slowly, filling glasses with steady hands. When I reached Daniel, I paused. None for me, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. No, I agreed. I don't suppose you need any more. I continued around the table until I reached Catherine. Her glass was still half full, but she held it up imperiously, waiting. I tipped the bottle, watching the wine flow, and kept pouring. The liquid reached the rim, trembled there. That's enough, she said sharply. I kept pouring. The wine overflowed, spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. What are you doing? She shrieked, jerking her glass away. Oh, I said calmly. I thought we were being excessive tonight. My mistake. The stain spread, reaching her plate, her bread plate, dripping onto her burgundy dress. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You did that on purpose. Prove it, I said. Daniel stood too, his face flushed with anger. Casey, what the hell? Food is for family, Victoria said loudly, trying to regain control of the moment. Wine is for family. This table is for family. Daniel laughed then, actually laughed, as if his sister had said something clever instead of cruel. Food is for family, he repeated, grinning at Victoria like they were sharing a private joke. Those words echoed in my mind, growing louder with each repetition. Food is for family. I'm not family. After 2 years of marriage, after everything I'd given up to fit into his world, I wasn't family. Something inside me that had been bending, always bending, finally snapped. I walked back to the foot of the table where my insulting place card still sat. The room watched as I picked it up, studied it for a moment, then tore it in half. The sound was small, but seemed to fill the space. Then I reached for one of the empty glasses, the one that should have been mine if I'd had a place at this table. I held it high, and my voice, when it came, was clear and strong. "I'd like to propose a toast." "You can't toast," Victoria said. "You don't have any wine. You don't have a seat. You don't have a place here," I finished. "Yes, I'm aware. That's been made abundantly clear." I looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. Some looked away. Others stared back with defiance. Emma watched with something like hope. "To luck," I said, my voice ringing in the silence. "To the incredible luck you've all had. To be born into wealth, to inherit your place at this table, to never have to earn a single thing you have." Catherine's face was turning purple. Robert had half risen from his chair. "And to my luck," I continued, "which brought me here tonight to finally see exactly what I married into. To understand that no matter what I do, no matter how I contort myself to fit your standards, I will never be enough. Because you don't want me to be enough. You need me to be less than so you can feel like more." "How dare you?" Catherine began. "I'm not finished." My voice cut through hers like a blade. "So, here's to luck. May it save you when the people you've stepped on stop holding you up." I set the empty glass on the table with a decisive clink. Then, in a motion that felt both spontaneous and inevitable, I pulled off my wedding ring. The diamond, 2 carats, Daniel had made sure everyone knew, caught the light as I placed it beside the glass. "Casey," Daniel said, his voice strangled. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done the first time your mother looked through me like I was invisible," I said. "The first time you laughed along with their jokes instead of defending me. The first time you told me to know my place." I looked at him one last time. This man I'd loved, or thought I'd loved. He wasn't looking at me with concern or regret or even anger. He was looking at his family, gauging their reactions, calculating the damage to his standing. "Enjoy your family dinner," I said. "I hope it tastes as good as it looks." I turned and walked toward the door, my footsteps steady despite the trembling in my legs. Behind me, the room erupted, Catherine's voice shrill with indignation, Victoria's laugh turning hysterical, Robert demanding that Daniel control his wife. But Daniel's voice, when it came, wasn't calling me back.
It was apologizing to them.
"I'll handle this," he was saying.
"I'm sorry."
"I'll fix this." Emma appeared at my side as I reached the doorway, pressing something into my hand. A car key. "Take mine," she whispered. "The blue Tesla. I'll get a ride with my parents." I squeezed her hand gratefully and kept walking. Through the foyer with its perfect flowers and priceless art. Past the mirror where I caught a glimpse of myself, dress still impeccable, head still high, eyes blazing with a fire-eyed forgotten I possessed. The front door was heavy, solid oak with iron fixtures that probably cost more than my car. I pulled it open, stepped into the cool October night, and let it close behind me with a sound like the ending of everything. Or maybe, I thought as I breathed in the crisp air that tasted of freedom, like the beginning. Behind me, through the windows, I could see the dining room in chaos, figures standing, gesturing wildly, Daniel's silhouette moving toward the door. But I was already walking toward Emma's car, the keys solid and real in my hand, my feet carrying me away from that table where I'd never had a place. The engine purred to life. In the rear-view mirror, the house blazed with light, looking exactly like what it was, a beautiful prison I'd just escaped. I drove away into the darkness, my wedding ring sitting on their perfect table like a resignation letter written in diamonds and gold, my message delivered in the only language they understood, the absolute withdrawal of my presence from their lives. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could actually breathe. Emma's Tesla drove like a dream, smooth and silent as it carried me away from the Whitmore estate. My hands shook on the steering wheel, adrenaline making my heart pound so hard I could feel it in my throat. In the rear-view mirror, the mansion grew smaller, its lights becoming pinpricks before disappearing entirely behind the Connecticut hills. My phone, tucked in my purse on the passenger seat, began buzzing immediately. Daniel's ringtone, a classical piece he'd chosen because it was sophisticated, played once, twice, 3 times before I reached over and turned the phone face down. The buzzing continued against the leather seat, insistent and angry. I drove without destination at first, letting the car carry me through winding roads lined with other estates, other perfect houses hiding other imperfect marriages. Eventually, I found myself on I-95, heading back toward the city, toward our apartment, though calling it ours now felt like a lie. The parking garage beneath our building was nearly empty at this hour. I pulled into the spot beside Daniel's empty space. He'd probably stay at the estate tonight, doing damage control, apologizing for his disappointing wife.
Good.
I needed time to think, to breathe, to figure out what came next. Our apartment was on the 15th floor, all glass and chrome and modern minimalism. Daniel had chosen it, of course. Clean lines, he'd said.
No clutter.
Looking at it now, I realized it had all the warmth of a hotel room. Even after 2 years, nothing here felt like mine. I set my purse on the marble counter and finally looked at my phone. 17 missed calls from Daniel. 3 from Catherine. 1 from Victoria. And a text from Emma. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. If you need anything, I'm here. I deleted Daniel's voicemails without listening to them until I reached the last one. Something made me press play. Casey, what the hell was that performance? His voice was cold, controlled fury. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. My mother is beside herself. Victoria's engagement dinner is ruined. I don't know what got into you, but when I get home, we're going to discuss your behavior and figure out how you're going to apologize. This is unacceptable. You need to remember who you are and who I am. Call me back. Now. I deleted it and blocked his number. The apartment's silence pressed against me. I walked through the rooms. The living room with its uncomfortable modern furniture, the bedroom with its perfectly made bed, the office where Daniel worked late into the night on deals I wasn't supposed to understand. Everything was his. Everything reflected his taste, his choices, his life that I'd been trying to squeeze myself into like a pair of too small shoes. In the bedroom, I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror. The black dress, that appropriate, modest Nordstrom dress, looked like costume now. I unzipped it, let it fall to the floor in a pool of fabric, and kicked it away. Standing there in my slip, I looked at myself, really looked. When had I become so diminished? When had I started making myself smaller to fit into Daniel's world? The answer came in flashes of memory. The first time I'd worn a bright red dress to one of his work events, and he'd asked me to change because it was too loud. The day I'd excitedly told him about a promotion at my marketing job, and he'd said, "That's nice, honey, but you won't need to work much longer anyway." The morning his mother had come for brunch and asked why I hadn't quit my job yet since Daniel makes more than enough. Every time I'd bitten my tongue when his family made snide comments about my background, my education, my family's quaint middle-class life. 1,000 small surrenders that had led to tonight's last stand. I pulled on jeans and a sweater, my clothes, purchased before Daniel, comfortable and unfussy. The weight of them felt like armor. The door to the apartment slammed open, making me jump. Daniel stood in the doorway, his perfect composure finally cracked. His tie was askew, his hair mussed from running his hands through it, a nervous habit he'd never quite conquered. "Are you insane?" he demanded, striding into the bedroom. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I left a dinner party where I was being humiliated," I said calmly. "That's what I did." "You threw a tantrum like a child. You spilled wine on my mother. Your mother arranged for my place card to say, house staff. There was no chair for me, Daniel. No place at the table." He waved this away like it was nothing. "It was a joke. You're too sensitive. You always have been." "A joke," I repeated. "Like when Victoria said I should serve instead of sit. Like when your father said I didn't have a real education. Like when you said I was lucky. You are lucky." The words exploded out of him. "Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position? To be married to me? To have this life? This isn't my life. I said quietly. It's yours. I'm just an accessory you wear to prove you're a normal, married man. A badly chosen accessory, apparently, since I don't match the decor. Don't be dramatic. I'm leaving, Daniel. The words hung between us, stark and final. His face cycled through emotions, disbelief, anger, and finally, a cold calculation I recognized from his business calls. You can't leave, he said with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a negotiation. Where would you go? How would you live? You signed a prenup, remember? You walk away, you get nothing. I'll get my freedom. That's not nothing. Freedom? He laughed, the sound ugly and sharp. Freedom to what? Go back to your pathetic job? Your studio apartment? Your state school friends who work in retail? Each word was meant to wound, to remind me of my place. 6 months ago, they might have worked. But something fundamental had shifted tonight, tectonic plates of my soul realigning. Yes, I said simply. Freedom to be myself instead of this carefully edited version I've been playing. Freedom to sit at a table where I'm wanted. Freedom from your family's casual cruelty and your cowardly silence. I wasn't silent. You laughed. I cut him off. When they humiliated me, you laughed along. When they called me the help, you said nothing. When your mother told me to know my place, you nodded. You were never on my side, Daniel. You were always on theirs, hoping I'd somehow transform into someone worthy of them. But here's the thing. I don't want to be worthy of people who treat others like servants. I don't want their approval anymore. And I don't want you. His phone rang, his mother's ringtone. He answered immediately, turning away from me. Yes, Mother. I'm handling it. Yes, I understand. No, she won't be coming to Victoria's wedding. Yes, I'll make sure of it. When he hung up, his face was set in stone. You have 1 week to get your things and get out. 1 week, and then I'm changing the locks. I'll be gone tomorrow. He stormed out, slamming the bedroom door behind him. I heard him in his office making calls, probably to his lawyer. Planning his counterattack. Protecting his assets. Being exactly who he'd always been while I'd tried to pretend he was someone else. I pulled out my suitcase, the one I'd brought when I first moved in, before everything became ours, that was really his. As I packed, I found myself thinking about my apartment before Daniel, that tiny studio above the bodega in Queens. 500 square feet with a radiator that clanged and windows that didn't quite close. I'd been happy there. When had I forgotten that? My phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. My mother is having a meltdown. It's glorious. She keeps saying the audacity over and over. Stand strong. For the first time since leaving the estate, I smiled. I packed methodically. Only things that were truly mine. Clothes from before our marriage. Books I'd brought with me. The coffee mug my best friend Sarah had given me that said, nevertheless, she persisted, that Daniel had hidden in the back of the cabinet because it was tacky. My grandmother's jewelry box. The laptop I'd used for my work before Daniel convinced me to quit. From the office, I could hear Daniel's voice rising and falling. Irreconcilable differences, protect the assets, expedite the process, minimize the damage. Damage. That's what I was to them now. Damage to be controlled, minimized, eliminated. My phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Casey? The voice was Catherine's, dripping with false concern. Dear, I think we should talk about what happened tonight. There's nothing to discuss. Oh, but there is. You see, you've upset the entire family. Poor Victoria is in tears. Her engagement dinner ruined. Daniel is devastated. And for what? A silly misunderstanding about seating? It wasn't a misunderstanding. You planned it. You printed that place card. You made sure there was no chair. A pause. Then Catherine's voice, dropping the pretense. You needed to be reminded of reality. You've gotten too comfortable, too presumptuous. Did you really think we'd accept you? A nobody from nowhere with nothing to offer, but a pretty face that caught my son's attention during a weak moment. I said slowly, that people who had everything might have also learned kindness. My mistake. Kindness is earned, dear. And you? You've earned nothing but our tolerance and barely that. Then we're in agreement. I don't want your tolerance anymore. You'll regret this, she said, her voice sharp as winter wind. We have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections. We'll make sure you get nothing. You'll crawl back, begging. I hung up and blocked her number 2. The suitcase was full now. 1 suitcase, 2 years of marriage. It said everything about what this had really been. I dragged it to the living room where Daniel stood at the window, his back to me. Phone pressed to his ear. He was silhouetted against the city lights, and for a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen for him. That confidence, that commanding presence. I'd mistaken arrogance for strength, coldness for sophistication. I'm leaving now, I said. He didn't turn around. The doorman has been instructed not to let you back in without my permission. I won't be back. Good. I paused at the door, looking back one last time. Daniel? He finally turned, and his face was stranger's face, cold, dismissive, already moving on. What? I loved you. I want you to know that. I loved who I thought you were, who you could have been if you'd ever stood up to them. If you'd ever chosen me, even once. Something flickered in his eyes, regret? Doubt? But it was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. Love doesn't matter, he said. Position matters. Family matters. Legacy matters. You never understood that. No, I agreed. I never did. I pulled my suitcase into the hallway and let the door close behind me. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor countdown marking my descent from his world back to my own. The doorman, Marcus, who'd always been kind to me, looked uncomfortable as I passed. Mrs. Whitmore, he began. Miss Brennan. I corrected. My name is Casey Brennan. He nodded, understanding. Ms. Brennan. Do you need help with a cab? Yes, please. Thank you, Marcus. While we waited for the taxi, he said quietly, my wife worked for a family like that once.
Private chef.
They treated her like furniture that cooked. She quit after 6 months. He met my eyes. You did the right thing. The kindness of it, after the night's cruelty, made my eyes burn with unshed tears. The taxi arrived, and Marcus helped me with my suitcase. Where to? The driver asked. I thought of Sarah, my best friend who'd warned me about Daniel from the beginning. Sarah who'd said, he looks at you like you're an acquisition, not a person. Sarah whose couch had been my refuge during our worst fights. I gave the driver her address in Brooklyn, so far from the Whitmore world it might as well be another planet. As we drove away, I looked back at the building one last time. 15 floors up, I could see the lights of what had been our apartment. Daniel was probably still there, strategizing, planning his narrative, crafting the story he'd tell about our marriage's end. I wondered what role I'd play in his version. The ungrateful wife? The social climber who couldn't handle the altitude? The embarrassment he'd overcome? It didn't matter.
I had my own story now.
Sarah opened her door before I could knock, pulling me into a fierce hug that smelled of paint and turpentine. She'd been working on her art again, the apartment her studio, since she couldn't afford separate space. That bastard called me, she said into my hair. Wanted to know if you were here. Told him I hadn't heard from you, and hung up.
Come in.
I've got wine and righteous anger, both in large quantities. Her apartment was everything Daniel would have hated, cluttered with canvases, mismatched furniture from thrift stores, dishes in the sink, life being actually lived instead of performed. It felt like home. Tell me everything, she demanded, pouring generous glasses of red wine that definitely wasn't from a chateau.
So I did.
Every detail, from the invitation to the place card to the spilled wine to my exit. Sarah's face cycled through expressions, anger, disbelief, pride when I described my toast. You actually said that. May luck save you when the people you've stepped on stop holding you up? Casey, that's fucking poetry. I think I blacked out a little, I admitted. It was like something else took over. Yeah, your self-respect. About damn time I showed up to the party. My phone, which I'd finally unmuted, buzzed with a text from my mother. Daniel called. Said you had some kind of breakdown? What's going on, sweetheart? I called her immediately, knowing Daniel's version would already be spreading like poison through every avenue he could find. Mom, Casey. Thank God. Daniel made it sound like you'd lost your mind. Something about throwing wine at his mother and causing a scene? Mom, I left him. Silence. Then, oh, honey, are you okay? Where are you? I'm at Sarah's. And I think I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I told her the real story. She listened without interrupting, though I could hear her sharp intake of breath at several points. That woman, she said finally, meaning Catherine. I never liked her. Remember at your wedding when she introduced me to people as the mother of the bride, instead of using my name? Like I was just a role, not a person? I'd forgotten that, or maybe I'd forced myself to forget it. Come home, Mom said. Your room is always here. I might, I said. But first I need to figure some things out. Handle the divorce, find a job. Take your time. We're here when you need us. After I hung up, Sarah refilled my wine glass. So, what's the plan? I don't know, I admitted. I signed a prenup. Daniel's family has an army of lawyers. I'll probably get nothing. You'll get your freedom. That's everything. My phone rang, Daniel again, from a different number. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker so Sarah could hear. Casey, this is getting ridiculous. You've made your point. Come home, and we'll discuss this like adults. I'm willing to forgive tonight's behavior if you apologize to my family and agree to counseling. This is a generous offer. Don't be stupid. Sarah snorted. Generous. He's willing to forgive you. The magnanimity. The next morning came too soon, sunlight streaming through Sarah's curtains and highlighting the pull-out couch's lumpy reality. My phone showed 53 missed calls from various Whitmore numbers and one from a number I recognized as Daniel's attorney. I called back. Ms. Brennan. The attorney's voice was crisp, professional. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Whitmore regarding the dissolution of your marriage. That was fast. Mr. Whitmore is eager to resolve this matter quickly and quietly. He's prepared to offer you a one-time payment of $50,000 for a clean divorce and a non-disclosure agreement about the family. $50,000 to buy my silence. It's a generous offer, considering the prenuptial agreement entitles you to significantly less. I need to think about it. The offer expires at 5 p.m. today.
Of course it did.
Daniel always loved his deadlines, his pressure tactics. I spent the morning looking for jobs, updating my resume, trying to remember who I'd been before I'd disappeared into the role of Daniel's wife. My marketing skills were rusty, but they were still there. 3 years of experience before Daniel, good references if they hadn't been poisoned against me. At lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, there was a video attachment. I clicked play. It was from the dinner, filmed on someone's phone. The angle showed me standing at the end of the table, holding the wine bottle. But it was edited, cutting from me holding the bottle to Catherine's dress being stained, making it look like I deliberately poured wine on her rather than overfilling her glass. The audio was clear, though. You could hear them laughing at me, calling me the help, telling me to serve. Another text followed. This is what everyone will see if you don't take the deal. Victoria. Sarah looked over my shoulder. That's blackmail. No, that's the Whitmores. But then another video arrived from Emma. This one was complete, unedited. It showed everything. The house staff place card, the missing chair, the cruel laughter, Daniel's compliance, my mother-in-law's command for me to pour the wine. And at the end, my speech, clear and dignified despite everything. Emma's text read, I have the full video. Multiple angles. They don't know I recorded everything. I called the attorney back. I'll need my own lawyer to review any agreement, I said. Ms. Brennan, I'd advise against prolonging. I'm sure you would. I'll be in touch. Sarah knew someone, of course she did. Sarah knew everyone. Her name's Asha Patel, she said. She handled my cousin's divorce from that Wall Street asshole. She doesn't play. Asha's office was in a building that had seen better days, but her eyes were sharp as a blade when I told her the story. She watched Emma's video twice, taking notes.
The prenup, she said.
Do you have a copy? I pulled it from my purse. I grabbed it from Daniel's office files before I left, knowing I'd need it. She read through it, occasionally making humming noises. This is interesting. Very interesting. There's a clause here about maintaining family dignity and standards. It's meant to control your behavior, but it cuts both ways. If they publicly humiliated you, they violated their own terms. What does that mean? It means their prenup might not be as ironclad as they think, especially with that video evidence. And this NDA they want you to sign? That's practically an admission of guilt. So what do I do? First, we respond to their offer with a counteroffer. Not for money yet, but for time. You need to get your feet under you. Then we see how far they're willing to go to keep that video from going public. I don't want to blackmail them. It's not blackmail. It's leverage. There's a difference. That afternoon, Daniel showed up at Sarah's building. The doorbell buzzed insistently until Sarah answered the intercom. Yeah, I know she's there. Tell her to come down. We need to talk. Sarah looked at me. I shook my head. She's not here, asshole. And even if she was, she doesn't want to talk to you. This is ridiculous. Casey, I know you can hear me. Stop being childish. Come home where you belong. She belongs wherever the fuck she wants to belong, Sarah shot back. Which isn't with you. I'll wait.
He did.
For 3 hours, Daniel stood outside Sarah's building. I watched from the window as he paced, made phone calls, loosened his tie in frustration. Finally, as the sun set, he got back in his BMW and drove away. But the next morning he was back. And this time, he wasn't alone. Catherine stood beside him, looking out of place in Brooklyn in her designer coat and heels. When Sarah went down to get her mail, they cornered her in the vestibule. I heard the commotion and came down to find Sarah facing off with both of them, her 5'2" frame radiating fury. Have no right to keep her from her husband, Catherine was saying. She's keeping herself from him, Sarah spat back. It's called free will. They saw me on the stairs, and Daniel stepped forward. Casey, this has gone on long enough. Yes, I agreed. It has. About 2 years too long. Catherine's lips pursed. You're making a spectacle of yourself. The entire family is talking about your behavior. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? For whom? I asked. For me?
No.
I'm not embarrassed by standing up for myself. But you should be embarrassed by your behavior. Creating a place card for house staff. Really? What are you, 12? How dare you? I dare because I have nothing left to lose. You made sure of that when you decided I would never be good enough for your precious family. You were never good enough, Catherine said coldly. I told Daniel from the beginning. Mother, Daniel warned. No, let her talk, I said. Let's have some truth for once. Catherine straightened, her eyes glittering with malice.
Fine.
You want truth? You were a mistake. A phase Daniel needed to get out of his system. We tolerated you because we thought he'd tire of you quickly. When he didn't, when he actually married you, we knew we had to show you reality. You don't belong. You're right, I said, and all 3 of them looked shocked. I don't belong in your world. Thank God. Because your world is small and cruel and built on stepping on anyone you see as beneath you. Which is everyone. At least we have a world, Daniel said. What do you have? A couch in your friend's apartment. I have integrity. I have friends who actually care about me, not my last name or bank account. I have family who love me without conditions or place cards. My phone buzzed. Asha calling. Excuse me, I need to take this. I turned my back on them, answering. Hello. Casey, I just got off the phone with their attorney. They're threatening to sue for defamation if Emma's video goes public. On what grounds? They're claiming it was illegally recorded. It's nonsense, but they're trying to scare you. Behind me, I heard Catherine hiss to Daniel, get control of this situation. Tell them, I said clearly, knowing they were listening, that if they want to discuss illegal activities, we can start with a charity fraud. Dead silence behind me. What charity fraud? Asha asked. Just something I heard at dinner. About donations being redirected. I'm sure it's nothing. But if they want to play hardball, got it. I'll pass along your message. I hung up and turned back to face them. Catherine's face had gone pale. You know nothing about our charity, she said. I know what I heard. And what Emma heard. And recorded. It was a bluff. Emma's video didn't have anything about charity fraud, but the way Catherine's face changed told me I'd hit close to something real. We should go, Daniel said quietly to his mother. This isn't over, Catherine said to me. No, I agreed. It's not. But the next conversation will be between lawyers. They left, Daniel guiding his mother away with a hand on her elbow. At the door, he looked back. You've changed, he said, and it wasn't a compliment.
No, incorrecta.
I've changed back. That afternoon, Asha called with news. They've modified their offer. 100,000, the apartment until the divorce is final, and a mutual NDA. They're scared. They're worried. There's a difference. The question is, what do you want? What did I want? Not their money, really, though I needed something to start over. Not revenge, though the temptation was there. What I wanted was simpler and more complex. I wanted my life back. My identity. My future unmarked by their shadow. I want a clean divorce, I said. I want enough money to start over. Not their hush money, but what's fair. And I want them to leave me alone. Forever. I can work with that. That evening, Emma texted. Family meeting tomorrow about the situation. Wish I could be a fly on the wall for your part of it. My part. The part where they try to figure out how to spin this so they don't look like the villains they are. Another text, this one from Marcus the doorman. Your husband had security change the locks and put your things in storage. I have the information when you're ready. My things. 2 years of accumulated couples items. Wedding gifts I'd never liked. Furniture Daniel had chosen. Art that matched his aesthetic. Did I even want any of it? Sarah found me staring at my phone, these fragments of my dissolved life pinging at me like digital shrapnel. You okay? I don't know. Is it normal to feel relieved? Like a weight I didn't know I was carrying is gone. Honey, after what they put you through, relief is the minimum you should feel. Daniel texted me earlier, I said, showing her my phone. His message read, You're going to regret this. You're throwing away everything for your pride. My pride, I laughed, but it came out bitter. Like pride is a character flaw instead of self-respect. Write back, Sarah suggested. Tell him pride tastes better than his family's leftovers. I didn't write back, but I did something else. I unblocked his number and sent one message. I already regret it. I regret not leaving sooner. Then I blocked him again, this time knowing it was permanent. That night, I lay on Sarah's pull-out couch, city sounds filtering through the windows, sirens, music from the bar down the street, life happening loudly and messily and authentically. So different from the pristine silence of Daniel's apartment, where even the air felt curated. My phone lit up with one final message of the day, this one from Asha. Their attorney just called. They're ready to negotiate properly. We're going to get you what you deserve. What I deserved. Such a loaded phrase. The Whitmores thought I deserved nothing. Daniel thought I deserved what he chose to give me. But lying there in the dark, I thought maybe what I deserved was simpler. The chance to sit at a table where my place card had my actual name on it, where my chair existed, where my voice mattered. And for the first time in years, that felt not just possible, but inevitable. 3 weeks after leaving Daniel, I stood behind the counter of Lena's cafe, the espresso machine hissing like a meditation soundtrack. The owner, Lena Rossetti, 43, former corporate lawyer turned coffee evangelist, had taken one look at me when I'd wandered in that first morning, recognized something in my eyes, and offered me a job before I'd even finished my latte. You have that look, she'd said simply. Like you just escaped from somewhere. I had the same look 15 years ago when I left Big Law. The cafe occupied the corner of a busy Brooklyn intersection, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. Nothing like the sterile perfection of Daniel's world. Here, regulars called out their orders before reaching the counter, Students camped at tables for hours nursing single drinks, and Lena knew everyone's name, their drink, their story. Casey, can you grab that? Lena called, nodding toward a box being delivered. I signed for the package, noting the supplier, a local roastery that Lena had helped launch when they were starting out. They remember who helped them, she'd told me. That's how you build something real. Mutual support, not stepping on necks. The morning rush was winding down when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up from cleaning the steam wand to see Emma Whitmore standing uncertainly in the doorway, designer purse clutched against her side like armor. Emma? I set down my cleaning cloth, genuinely surprised. How did you find me? Sarah, she admitted, approaching the counter. I convinced her I wasn't here on behalf of the family. I'm not, I swear. She looked different outside the Whitmore ecosystem. Younger, less polished, more human. Her usual perfectly styled hair was pulled into a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans, though they were probably designer. Coffee, I offered.
Please.
Whatever you recommend. I trust your judgment. I made her a cappuccino, taking my time with the foam art, a small fern pattern I'd been practicing. When I handed it over, she stared at it for a moment. You're good at this. It's just coffee. No, I mean... She gestured vaguely. This. Being yourself. I watched you at that dinner and then watched you leave, and I thought, God, I want to be that brave. Desperation looks like bravery from the outside, I said. Emma reached into her purse, pulling out a small velvet pouch. I need to give you something. Lena, who had excellent instincts about when to make herself scarce, announced she was checking inventory in the back. Emma slid the pouch across the counter. Inside was a USB drive and a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it, the original seating chart from the dinner, with handwritten notes in the margins. Catherine's handwriting. Put C at servant's position. I read aloud. Make sure she knows her place. It was planned days in advance, Emma said quietly. That whole dinner was orchestrated to humiliate you. But Casey, that's not why I'm here. She pulled out her phone, plugging in the USB drive through an adapter. The screen filled with files, documents, spreadsheets, emails. What is this? The real books for the Whitmore Family Foundation. The charity they run? It's a shell game. They've been redirecting funds meant for scholarships into their own accounts, calling it administrative costs and event planning. I stared at the screen, scrolling through spreadsheets that showed donations in one column and disbursements in another. The math didn't add up. Hundreds of thousands of dollars disappeared into something called FamServe events. FamServe is registered to my aunt's assistant, Emma continued. But Catherine controls it. She's been using charity funds to pay for family parties, European vacations, Victoria's wedding planning, all of it written off as charity events. Why are you showing me this? Emma's hands wrapped around her coffee cup, seeking warmth or comfort. Because I'm tired of being complicit through silence. Because what they did to you was just the visible tip of how they treat everyone they see as beneath them. Because I found out that 3 students lost their scholarships this year while my aunt bought a new Mercedes with administrative funds. Emma, this is serious. This is federal fraud. I know. I'm in my 2nd year of law school. She laughed bitterly. Ironically, being paid for by the same foundation that's defrauding others. What do you want me to do with this? I don't know yet. I'm not ready to blow up my entire family, but I wanted someone else to know, someone outside the circle of complicity. And after that dinner, after watching you refuse to play their games anymore, I thought you'd understand. The bell chimed again and we both tensed. But it was just a regular Mrs. Chun from the flower shop next door, coming for her afternoon courtesy. After I served her, Emma stood to leave. There's something else. On that drive. Recordings from family meetings where they discussed you. Not just the dinner planning, but other things. How to manage you. How to make you fall in line. Daniel was part of all of it. My stomach turned. He knew about the dinner?
He suggested it.
Said you needed to be reminded of reality. The betrayal hit fresh, even after everything. Some part of me had still believed Daniel had been caught between loyalties, weak but not actively cruel. But this. Keep the drive, Emma said. I have copies hidden. Maybe nothing will come of it, but at least now the truth exists somewhere outside their control. She left, and I stood there holding the USB drive, feeling its weight despite how light it was. Lena emerged from the back room. You okay? I just found out my ex-husband's family is running a fraudulent charity. Lena whistled low. And I thought my ex was bad. He just cheated with his secretary. She studied my face. You going to do something with that information? I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. Well, while you're figuring it out, I've got a proposition for you. I looked up, grateful for the distraction. I've been thinking about starting a catering arm of the business. Small events, private parties, that sort of thing. You ran events at your marketing job before, right? Want to help me build something? Lena, I can barely make rent right now. That's why it's perfect. We start small, build it up. Split the profits. You need a fresh start. I need someone with experience who I trust. What do you say? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Asha. Settlement meeting tomorrow. Bring your game face. The law offices of Whitmore, Kravitz, and Associates occupied 3 floors of a Manhattan high-rise, all marble and mahogany and intimidation by interior design. I sat beside Asha in a conference room that probably cost more to decorate than I'd make in a year. Across from us, Daniel sat flanked by 2 lawyers, his father's partners, men who looked like they'd been pressed from the same expensive mold. Daniel wouldn't look at me directly, his gaze fixed on some point just past my left shoulder. Let's cut to the chase, the senior lawyer, Kravitz said. Your client has made some concerning allegations about the Whitmore family. Allegations that, if made public, would constitute defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, Asha replied calmly. You have no proof. Asha pulled out her tablet, swiping to Emma's video. Shall we watch together? I particularly enjoy the part where Mrs. Whitmore instructs my client to serve wine like hired help. Daniel's jaw tightened. That was a misunderstanding. Was the place card that said, house staff, also a misunderstanding? I asked, speaking for the first time. You're being overdramatic, Daniel said, finally meeting my eyes. As usual. Gaslighting isn't a good look in settlement negotiations, Asha noted. Kravitz cleared his throat. Our client is prepared to offer a generous settlement. $200,000 and the apartment for 6 months. In exchange for? Asha asked. A comprehensive NDA and the return of any materials belonging to the family. Materials? They knew Emma had given me something. My client will consider $300,000, the apartment for a year, and a mutual NDA that prevents either party from discussing the other. That's excessive. What's excessive, I interrupted, is committing charity fraud. The room went silent. Daniel's face drained of color. I don't know what Kravitz began. Serve events, I said simply. Should I continue? Daniel's hand slammed on the table. You know nothing about our foundation. I know that 3 students lost their scholarships this year, while your mother spent $70,000 on a charity gala that was actually Victoria's engagement party. You're making wild accusations.
I'm stating facts.
Facts that I'm sure the IRS would find very interesting. Kravitz leaned over to whisper urgently to Daniel. I caught fragments, exposure, audit, criminal liability. 500,000, Daniel said suddenly. 500,000 and you walk away. No contact, no disclosure, nothing. I don't want your hush money, I said. I want a fair divorce settlement. I want what I'm owed for 2 years of being treated like an unwelcome guest in my own marriage. And I want you to actually use that foundation money for scholarships, not Mercedes payments. You have no right. I have every right. Those students, the ones your family cheated, they're like I was, working multiple jobs, fighting for every opportunity, trying to better themselves despite people like you telling them they don't belong. So here's my offer. $300,000, which is less than what you spent on your watch collection last year. The apartment for a year while I establish myself. And the foundation gets audited by an independent firm, with all misappropriated funds returned to the scholarship program. That's extortion, Kravitz said. That's justice, Asha corrected. And it's generous, considering what we could pursue. Daniel stood abruptly. I need to make a call. He left the room, and through the glass walls, I could see him pacing, phone pressed to his ear, calling Catherine, no doubt. You know they'll make your life hell if you push this, Kravitz said quietly, his professional mask slipping slightly. They already did that. Difference is, now I'm pushing back. Daniel returned, his face set in hard lines. The family agrees to your terms. But there's a condition. You return everything Emma gave you. So they did know. I'll return the physical items, I said carefully. But knowledge can't be unlearned. Casey. That's my offer, Daniel. Take it or we go to court, and everything becomes public record. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since I'd walked in. I don't even know who you are anymore. You never did. You only knew the version of me you were trying to create. 2 months later, Lena's cafe had transformed into command central for something bigger than coffee and pastries. The catering business we'd started, Common Ground Events, had taken off faster than either of us expected. Turns out there was a market for event planning that treated service staff as humans rather than furniture. We've got 3 bookings this week, Lena announced, reviewing our calendar. The nonprofit gala on Thursday, the art gallery opening Friday, and you're going to love this, a service appreciation dinner on Saturday. Service appreciation? Some anonymous donor wants to honor hotel and restaurant workers. They specifically requested us because of our ethical practices. Anonymous donor. I had my suspicions about who that might be. Emma and I had been meeting secretly once a week at a diner in Queens, far from any Whitmore territory. She'd been feeding me information, not about the fraud, which I'd promised to keep quiet as part of the settlement, but about the family's growing paranoia. They're convinced you're planning something, she'd told me last week. Mother actually hired a private investigator to follow you. Let them waste their money. I'm just living my life. But that wasn't entirely true. I was building something, piece by piece. The hotel workers' union had reached out after hearing about what happened at the dinner. Apparently, one of the servers there had been Marcus's cousin. They wanted to document stories of abuse by wealthy families, building a case for better protection laws. Asha had connected me with a journalist, Diane Torres, who was investigating wage theft and worker abuse in high-society households. You wouldn't believe the stories I'm hearing, she'd said over coffee. Your dinner party drama is just the tip of the iceberg. And then there was the notebook I'd started keeping, documenting every instance of abuse I'd witnessed during my marriage, not just against me, but against everyone the Whitmores saw as beneath them. The housekeeper fired on Christmas Eve for taking home leftover food. The driver let go without severance after 20 years because he'd developed a limp. The charity recipients who had to perform gratitude like dancing monkeys at galas. But tonight was about something else. Casey, Sarah called from where she was designing our new business cards. You need to see this. She held up her phone, showing me an Instagram post from Victoria's account. It was a photo from a charity gala. The Whitmores posed in formal wear, with a caption about giving back to the less fortunate. But in the background, barely visible, was a banner for FamServe events. They're still using it, I breathed. Even after the settlement, even after promising to audit the foundation. The arrogance, Sarah spat. They really think they're untouchable. My phone rang, Emma. Can you meet tonight? Her voice was urgent. Not the diner. Somewhere public. Very public. We met at Grand Central, surrounded by the evening rush of commuters. Emma looked haggard, dark circles under her eyes. They're planning something, she said without preamble. For Victoria's wedding. They want to humiliate you publicly, make sure you can never show your face in their circles again. I don't travel in their circles anymore. They don't care. It's about the principle. You challenge them and they need to reassert dominance. They've invited every media contact they have. They're going to tell a story about you at the reception, something to destroy your reputation permanently. What story? That you stole from the family. They've fabricated evidence, edited bank statements, fake receipts. They plan to present it as the reason for the divorce, say they discovered you were embezzling but kept quiet to avoid scandal. But now that you're spreading lies about them, They feel obligated to reveal the truth. I felt sick. Even knowing they were capable of this, the calculated cruelty still shocked me. When is the wedding? 3 weeks. Same venue as the engagement dinner. They rented the entire estate. The same estate where they'd tried to break me. There was a poetic symmetry to it. Emma, I need you to do something for me. It might compromise your position with the family. I'm already compromised. I can't keep pretending I don't see who they really are. She pulled out an envelope. I've been accepted to a law program in London. Full scholarship, a real one, not the family foundation kind. I leave after the wedding. So whatever you're planning, I'm in. I need the guest list. And the vendor information. Everyone they've hired. Why? Because if they want to make their stand at Victoria's wedding, then that's where I'll make mine. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked with the precision of a general planning a campaign. The anonymous donor confirmed the service appreciation dinner, same night as Victoria's wedding, and I was able to book the estate's ballroom since the Whitmores had only reserved the main hall and gardens. You're really going back there? Lena asked when I told her the plan. With an army this time. Every server, housekeeper, driver, and service worker they've ever mistreated. Plus some special guests. Diane Torres was on board, as were 2 other journalists who'd been investigating labor abuses among the ultra-wealthy. The State Labor Board had expressed interest in attending after I'd forwarded them some carefully selected documentation. And Asha had reached out to her contacts at the IRS, who were very curious about FamServe events despite the Whitmore's promises to reform. But the masterpiece was something else entirely. Marcus, the former doorman from Daniel's building, had a cousin who worked IT for the estate. With his help, I'd gained access to the AV system they'd use for the wedding reception. You sure about this? He asked when I explained what I wanted. They want to destroy me with lies. I'm going to destroy them with truth. Emma provided the final pieces, emails between family members planning my humiliation at the original dinner, recorded conversations where they laughed about making me serve, and something I hadn't expected, security footage from the estate showing Catherine instructing staff to create the house staff place card. How did you get this? The security guard felt bad about what happened. He saved a copy before they deleted it. 3 days before the wedding, Daniel called me from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Casey. His voice was different, older, tired. You need to stop whatever you're planning. I'm planning a dinner to honor service workers. Nothing to do with you. Don't insult my intelligence. Mother knows something's happening. She's prepared. Prepared for what? For the truth? Because that's all I have, Daniel. The truth about who you all really are. You don't understand what you're playing with. We have resources. And I have nothing left to lose. You made sure of that when you decided I needed to know my place. Well, I know it now. It's standing with every person your family has stepped on to maintain their position. This won't end well for you. It already didn't end well for me. The difference is, now it might not end well for you either. He hung up without another word. The night before the wedding, I stood in the estate's ballroom, my ballroom for tomorrow night, directing the setup. Tables arranged in a horseshoe, each place setting identical and elegant. No hierarchy, no high table, no house staff cards. Where do you want the projection screen? Marcus asked. Center stage. Make sure it's visible from the main hall too. I want overflow from their reception to see it if they wander over. Sarah arrived with a box of programs for our event. Beautiful things she designed, each one telling the story of a service worker, their dreams, their struggles, their dignity in the face of dismissal. You know they might sue you for this, she said. For what? Throwing a better party next door? But we both knew it was more than that. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever been made to feel small by people who confused inherited wealth with inherent worth. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. They've hired extra security for tomorrow. They know something's coming. I texted back. Good. I want them to see it coming. I want them to know what it feels like to dread a dinner party. That night, I lay in my new apartment, small but mine, paid for with money earned from common ground events, and thought about the morning after the original dinner. How I'd felt stripped of dignity, reduced to nothing. Tomorrow, I'd return to that estate. But this time, I wouldn't be alone. This time, I'd have an army of people who knew what it was like to be called the help. And this time, the Whitmores would learn that when you build your kingdom on the backs of those you dismiss, eventually, they stand up. And when they do, your kingdom falls. The estate blazed with light as two different worlds converged on the same grounds. Through the main entrance, Victoria's wedding guests arrived in their Bentleys and Ferraris, jewels catching the light from photographers hired to document the society event of the season. Through the service entrance, which we'd deliberately chosen, came my guests, hotel workers in their best clothes, restaurant servers, housekeepers, drivers, the invisible army that made the wealthiest lives possible. Casey. Marcus waved from where he was setting up the projection equipment. We're all connected. The overflow from their system will display on ours if needed. Lena surveyed our ballroom with satisfaction. Look at this. Every place setting identical, every seat equally important. It's beautiful. She was right. We transformed the space into something warm and welcoming. Gold tablecloths with simple centerpieces of sunflowers, nothing ostentatious, just genuine beauty. The banner across the stage read Service Awards, honoring those who serve. My phone buzzed. Emma, they're starting the reception. Mother's speech is in an hour. Perfect timing. The first of my guests began arriving. Maria, who'd cleaned the Whitmore mansion for 15 years until she was fired for missing a day when her son was hospitalized. James, the driver, who'd been let go after developing his limp. Susan, who'd catered dozens of Whitmore parties and was still owed thousands in payment. I can't believe you did this, Maria said, tears in her eyes as she saw her name on a place card, her actual name, in golden script. In 20 years working for rich families, no one ever set a place for me at a table. Diane Torres arrived with her fellow journalists, their press badges visible. The State Labor Board representative, Ms. Rodriguez, followed shortly after, accompanied by someone I recognized from Asha's description as an IRS investigator. Quite a gathering, Diane noted, surveying the room. The Whitmores must be having fits knowing you're here. They don't know yet, I said. But they will. As our room filled, I could hear the music and laughter from Victoria's reception through the shared walls. The contrast was stark, their forced elegance versus our genuine warmth. At 7:30, I stepped onto our small stage, tapping the microphone. The room quieted. Welcome, I said, my voice steady. Tonight, we celebrate something the wealthy often forget exists, the dignity of honest work and the people who do it. Applause rippled through the room, genuine and warm. 6 months ago, I sat in this very building at a dinner where I was told to know my place. Where my place card read, house staff, instead of my name. Where I was denied a seat at the table because I wasn't deemed worthy. Murmurs of recognition. Some of these people had been working that night, had witnessed my humiliation. But tonight, every single person here has a place, a name, a seat at the table. Because tonight, we're not here to serve. We're here to be served the one thing we've always deserved, respect. The applause was thunderous. Through the noise, I heard a commotion from the main hall. They'd heard us. Before we begin our dinner, I continued, I want to share something with you. Evidence of how some people view those of us who work for a living. Marcus dimmed the lights and started the projection. The screen lit up with the security footage Emma had provided. Catherine Whitmore instructing staff to create the house staff place card, laughing as she said, she needs to learn her position. Gasps filled our room, but also from beyond. Some of Victoria's guests had wandered over, drawn by the commotion. The footage continued. The family meeting where they'd planned my humiliation, Daniel suggesting I needed to be put in my place, Victoria laughing about making me serve. Then came the audio from the dinner itself, crystal clear. Food is for family. You can serve, not sit. Know your place. The screen went dark for a moment, then lit up with documents, the FamServe events records showing charity funds diverted to personal expenses. Catherine's signature on every authorization. This, I said into the shocked silence, is who they really are. This is how they treat people. And this is why tonight matters. Suddenly, the main doors burst open. Daniel stood there in his tuxedo, face flushed with rage, Catherine beside him in a mother-of-the-bride dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Turn it off," Catherine commanded, her voice shrill. "Turn it off now. This is our event," I said calmly. "You're welcome to leave." "This is defamation," Daniel shouted. "We'll sue you for everything." "Everything I have?" I laughed. "I have the truth."
Sue me for that.
Victoria appeared behind them, her wedding dress a confection of lace and entitlement, Preston at her side, looking uncomfortable. "You're ruining my wedding."
No, incorrecta.
"I'm hosting a dinner party. You're ruining it by barging in uninvited. Isn't that ironic?" Diane Torres had her phone out, recording everything. The other journalists were taking notes. Ms. Rodriguez from the Labor Board was watching with particular interest. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to both rooms now, as Victoria's guests had followed to see the commotion, the Whitmore family, who've graciously demonstrated exactly the behavior we've been discussing. Catherine advanced toward the projection equipment, but Maria stepped in her path, small, dignified Maria who'd scrubbed Catherine's toilets for 15 years. "No, Senora," Maria said quietly. "Tonight, you don't give the orders." "How dare you? How dare you?" Maria's voice rose. 15 years, I cleaned your house. 15 years, and you fired me because my son was dying and I went to him instead of to your stupid party. You were hired help. I am a human being. Maria's declaration rang through both rooms. We all are. Every person in this room has worth beyond what we can do for you. One by one, my guests began standing, forming a line between the Whitmores and our event. The family that had seemed so powerful suddenly looked small, outnumbered, ordinary. Then Emma emerged from behind her family, walking slowly across the divide to stand with us. Catherine gasped. "Emma, what are you doing?" "The right thing, finally." Emma's voice was steady. "I'm done being silent. Done being complicit." She handed me a final USB drive. "The rest of it. Everything." "You little traitor," Victoria hissed.
No, Emma replied.
"I'm just someone who finally found her place, and it's not with people who treat others as less than human." Security guards appeared, the extra ones the Whitmores had hired, but they hesitated, unsure who to remove from where. "Those people," Catherine pointed at us, "are trespassing." "Actually," I said, pulling out our rental agreement, "we have every right to be here. We rented this ballroom legitimately. You, however, are disrupting our event." One of the security guards, a young black man, looked at the scene, the service workers standing dignified on one side, the Whitmores red-faced and shouting on the other. He made his choice. "Ma'am," he said to Catherine, "I'm going to have to ask you to return to your own event." "We pay you," Daniel exploded. "No," the guard corrected. "The estate pays me. And they have 2 legitimate events tonight. Please return to yours." As the Whitmores were herded back to their reception, Catherine turned for one last shot. "You'll regret this. All of you." "The only thing I regret," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is the 2 years I wasted trying to earn the approval of people who see others as disposable." They left, but the damage was done. Half of Victoria's guests had witnessed the meltdown, had seen the evidence of fraud, had heard the recordings. Within minutes, phones were buzzing as the story spread through their social circles. The morning after the 2 dinners, my phone hadn't stopped ringing. Diane Torres's article had gone live at midnight. Charity fraud and worker abuse, the dark side of high society. The security footage, the audio recordings, the financial documents, all of it was now public. "Casey, you need to see this," Sarah said, bursting into my apartment with her laptop. The Whitmore Family Foundation website displayed a single message: "Under investigation. All operations suspended pending audit." "It's happening," I breathed. Asha called moments later. "The IRS has frozen their accounts. The State Attorney General's office is opening a criminal investigation." "And Casey?" 3 more families have come forward about similar fraud in their foundations. Over the next week, the dominoes fell rapidly. The charity board expelled Catherine from her position. The country club suspended the family's membership pending investigation. Daniel's firm placed him on administrative leave. Victoria's new father-in-law called off his son's marriage, citing reputational concerns. But the real victory came in smaller moments. Maria got a call from a legitimate foundation offering her a job managing their scholarship program, with full benefits and 3 times her old salary. They said they wanted someone who understood dignity, she told me through tears. James was hired by a car service that specifically sought out drivers the Whitmores had dismissed. They're calling it an ethical alternative to traditional luxury transport. The estate changed its policies, mandating fair treatment for all service staff and instituting a whistleblower protection program. 2 weeks after the dinners, I received a legal notice. Not from the Whitmore's lawyers, but from the IRS. They were offering me a whistleblower award, a percentage of the recovered fraudulent funds. It's substantial, Asha explained. Enough to really start fresh. But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was the email I received from a college student. I was one of the scholarship recipients who lost funding. Thanks to your actions, they're reinstating the program with full back payments. You gave me my future back. Daniel showed up at the cafe on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. He looked diminished, designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack, the confident swagger gone. Lena started to intercept him, but I waved her off. 5 minutes, I said. He sat across from me at a corner table, the same table where Emma had given me the first USB drive. I lost everything, he said without preamble. The job, the apartment, the family money. Father cut me off. Victoria won't speak to me. Mother is facing criminal charges. I waited. I wanted to ask why? Why did you have to destroy everything? I didn't destroy anything, I said carefully. I just revealed what was already there. The rot, the cruelty, the fraud, that was all you. I just turned on the lights. We could have worked it out privately. Like you worked out my humiliation privately? In family meetings where you all laughed about putting me in my place. He flinched. I was trying to fit in. You don't understand the pressure. Stop. I held up my hand. Even now you're making excuses. You chose them over me, over and over. You chose cruelty because it was easier than kindness. You chose to laugh along rather than stand up. Those were your choices, Daniel. Own them. He stared at his hands. I did love you. In the beginning. You loved the idea of me. The grateful girl from nowhere who'd be so amazed by your world, she'd never challenge you. When I turned out to be a real person with dignity and self-respect, that love evaporated. So what now? You've won. What happens to me? That's not my concern anymore. But Daniel? A word of advice. Learn to wait tables or clean houses or drive cars. Learn what honest work feels like. Maybe then you'll understand the value of the people you dismissed. He left without another word. I never saw him again. 6 months later, Common Ground events had grown into something neither Lena nor I had imagined. We had a staff of 12, all formerly dismissed workers from wealthy households. Our client list included nonprofits, art galleries, and increasingly, corporations wanting to demonstrate ethical practices. The invitation arrived on cream paper, expensive, but not ostentatious. The State Labor Board's annual gala, honoring advocates for workers' rights. I was being given their Impact Award. You have to go, Lena insisted. This is huge. The night of the gala, I wore a red dress, bright, bold, impossible to mistake for service attire. Sarah did my hair. Emma, back from London for the occasion, lent me her grandmother's earrings. You look like yourself, Emma said. Your real self. The venue was elegant but warm, filled with union leaders, advocates, and yes, service workers, all as guests, all with seats at tables, all with their names in gold script on place cards. When they called my name for the award, I stood at the podium looking out at a sea of faces, some familiar, many strangers, all united by understanding that dignity wasn't something you earned through wealth or position. It was inherent. 6 months ago, I began. Someone told me to know my place. They meant it as an insult, as a way to make me small. But they were right about one thing. I did need to know my place. My place is standing with every person who's ever been dismissed, diminished, or dehumanized by those who mistake privilege for superiority. My place is at any table where respect is served alongside the meal. My place is wherever I choose to stand, sit, or speak my truth. The applause was immediate and sustained. In the crowd, I saw Maria wiping tears, James clapping with enthusiasm, Susan raising her glass in salute. To those who think they own the tables, I concluded, remember, we built them. We clean them. We serve at them. And sometimes, when you push us too far, we flip them. Thank you. Epilogue. 3 years later. The Office of Common Table Enterprises buzzed with activity. What had started as a small catering company had evolved into a full-scale event planning firm with a unique model. All employees were partners, sharing profits equally. We'd just signed our biggest contract yet, handling all events for a progressive tech company that had built ethical treatment into their corporate charter. Emma, now a practicing labor attorney, often sent clients our way. She'd never returned to the Whitmore fold, choosing instead to build her own legacy. The Whitmores themselves had largely disappeared from public life. Catherine's trial had ended with a plea deal, community service and restitution, but no jail time. Money still had some power, even diminished. Victoria lived quietly in Connecticut, her grand wedding having become a cautionary tale told at society gatherings. Daniel, last I'd heard, was working at a small firm in Boston, starting over. I was reviewing contracts when Lena knocked on my door. "Someone here to see you." A young woman entered, nervous but determined. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Miss Brennan?"
I'm Jennifer Walsh.
I was a maid at the Whitmore estate during your marriage. I remembered her then. Quiet, efficient, invisible by training. "How can I help you?" "I'm not here for help," she said, straightening. "I'm here to apply for a job. But first, I wanted to thank you. After what you did after that dinner, I realized I didn't have to accept being treated as less than. I went back to school, finished my degree, and now I want to work somewhere that understands that service doesn't mean servitude." I smiled, pulling out an application. "Welcome to Common Table. Here, everyone has a seat at the table. And more importantly, everyone has a voice." As she filled out the forms, I looked around my office. Photos from successful events, thank you notes from clients, the framed house staff, place card from that horrible dinner now transformed into a reminder of how far we'd come. The Whitmores had tried to teach me my place. They'd succeeded, just not how they'd intended. My place was exactly where I stood, building tables where everyone was welcome, where dignity was non-negotiable, where the last would be first and the first would learn, finally, what it meant to serve. If you had to choose between keeping your place in comfort or losing everything to stand up for your dignity, what would you do? If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your voice when the world tells you to stay silent.